got a problem. Lottie's got the answer. She won't sugarcoat 'em, 'cause it's Lottie, and Lottie don't lie. Cause it's Lottie, and Lottie don't lie. Welcome to Lottie Don't Lie. It's Samantha.
And Melissa.
And today our episode is a little bit different. When we play this recording, you'll notice that it is just me talking because Melissa kindly let me ramble on to myself about my own story to you guys. So it's definitely different and interesting.
It's going to be really interesting. I actually haven't heard it yet myself either, guys. It's just one of those things where Sam needed space. She wanted space to tell her story. So I cannot wait to hear her story and receive it. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. It was kind of hard. One, because it is super personal. Two, I did get emotional at some point in it, and so I'm embarrassed about that. But three, there is some statistics in it that are very important and need to be more known. So that's honestly, if the statistics are what gets out, then it's worth it. And if people start getting diagnosed correctly, it's worth it.
I'm really actually anxious to hear it all now. But it's because it's mental health month too, right? And we decided
Yeah.
let's share,
Yeah.
which is hard. It is hard, but thank you.
You're welcome, and yours is coming up soon.
Yeah.
So I think
Sooner
we really both get deep.
Yeah, it gets deep, but, I don't want you to be embarrassed they got emotional. I feel like that's what can kind of, bond us all together is, knowing that we've all been through some shit, right?
That is true. It's the vulnerability. That's kinda
Yeah,
kinda why we're here, right?
exactly. It's exactly why we're here. So
Which you guys might actually find really funny, the fail that happened today. So Melissa and I are getting ready to record, and it took 30 minutes of me going back and forth in my head of, "Oh, we're recording this. Nope, just kidding. We're doing this. No, we're doing this. I don't know what we're doing." I was so confused. I have so much on my mind and deadlines for a documentary that I'm working on and creating, deadlines for school that I'm in, deadlines for the podcast, and, they're all blurred together in my brain, and I'm at the point where it's I don't know. I need to do better at, marking it in the calendar. So, long story short, it took us 30 minutes to remember what we're recording right now.
And that is okay. I just wish I could have helped more. She's like, "Melissa, help me." And I was like and it turns out in the end, I kinda coulda helped. No, I couldn't have because there was one key piece of information I didn't have. And it
I'm
was like,
trying.
I know, but it's okay. It was funny because I was like, "Yeah, maybe I should have been able to help." No, wait, I couldn't have.
I'm just like, "Melissa, help me. Give me my brain." And she's like, "You
Okay.
should if
All
I
right,
could. I
let
need
me
more
see, let me
information."
see. Let's look at the calendar. And we were looking at the calendar and I'm like, "No, what you're saying, I think we're fine." And then she's like, "Oh, but actually we have to have everything to this one person by this date." "Oh, okay, that's why we need to get ahead of our schedule." So, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, that's an important piece." But we
Yeah.
got it. We got there.
We did. And on a, better note, you had a funny story about an outing that you and Jacob had, and I need everyone to
Yeah.
hear it because it's so cute, but it's
This
funny.
was so funny. So, it's not a fail per se, at least, um, but it's just like a wild little story. We went out to breakfast one morning, and actually it was me and Brett and Jacob, and, we were at, anyway, a breakfast diner in Cumming, Georgia, and, I asked for water with no ice, and the little waiter, he was like a 16-year-old boy probably, he was like, "Oh, um, I don't know if I can bring you water without ice." And I was like, "Oh, that's weird." I said, "Well, I just, I don't sometimes I feel like when it's cold, I can't drink, I don't drink as much water as I should because it's just too cold." And he was like, yeah, I think there are health benefits to drinking warm water." "Okay, I got you." So he came back and he had a mug of hot coffee water with no coffee in it, just hot water, boiling water kinda. And then he had a glass that had ice water in it. And he's like, so, and then he brought me an empty glass and he wanted me to pour them together so that the water wouldn't be too, so it would cool down the ice. And I was just like, what is happening? And I thought he was like, I really thought maybe he's just pranking me. But he was very serious and he just didn't realize that he could just get me some water with no ice in it, just regular water. And I guess he thought it had to be like, hot from the coffee thing or ice water. And so I
No,
just
it makes me think that he probably is just one of those people that does something the same way every single time, and then when that routine
yeah,
gets thrown off, it's like, "Oh, I can't do that." And then,
exactly.
like, you're like, "Oh, wait, like, I can," but, like, it's hard for them to realize
It
that, "Oh, yeah,
was.
this is okay."
And I was glad that it was me because I feel like if it was anybody, maybe somebody else, not anybody, but he could have
Oh,
had
someone
somebody
would've been a
kinda
dick.
mean. Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, well, thank you. That was really thoughtful of you." And I just, like, trying to pour him. I'm spilling water all over the
You're
table.
sipping on hot water. Oh my
It was
gosh.
so funny.
You should have
And
just
then
asked for a
later
tea bag.
yeah, and then later he, was so cute because we were ordering Jacob ordered eggs, and he goes, I've never really had eggs. What do they taste like?" And it was like, I don't know." It
Oh
was
my
so
gosh.
funny. But and then Brett was like, "He's not gonna last. There's no way." And I was like, "I hope he does. He's so sweet, like, so kind." And then we came back, like, a few months later, and he was still there, so I was very happy.
Yay. Shout
But
out
he
to
was
you, kiddo.
yeah, but he had lost some of his naivete because when he didn't remember me or anything, but when he served us, he was just very, like, old hat. He knew what he was doing. But, I was like,
Of
"I remember
course.
when you were just a little baby."
Oh, man. I still have, go, "Oh," like, at the thought of being a server. Like,
It's a
those
lot.
are just days I never wanna do it again, ever, ever, ever.
I feel
I
like
would rather be, like I'd rather be, like, working in a landfill before being a server again.
really? Oh my
Yes,
goodness,
I
my
hated it so much.
nose. Okay, got you. Got you.
They got eucalyptus, like, salts you can, like, put up in your nose and
That's
get past
true.
it.
That's true.
Anywho, I'm stalling now. Are you guys ready to hear a wild
Let's
story?
hear Samantha's wild story.
Hey squad, it is Samantha, and I am solo today for Lottie Don't Lie. Melissa has graciously let me run today's show as I share with you guys my personal mental health story. So, this is very personal and not most people don't know what has been going on with me and what I have been working through the last year. So I've decided that since it's Mental Health Awareness Month and the statistics that I'm going to share with you guys are so shocking that I felt like, how could I not share with you guys what I've been struggling with, because it's significantly impacting so many people around us that I've learned you each probably know multiple people that actually struggle with the same thing. So, are you ready? Let's do this. Okay, so when we started this podcast, do you guys, for those who don't remember, when we started, I'll just kind of recap. Melissa and I started this podcast shortly after I had started experiencing seizures. Let me just paint the picture for you. So I'm on my dream vacation with my husband Simon. We're in Costa Rica. Costa Rica had been one of the places that we had been trying to visit 4 times, and it kept getting canceled as we'd get ready to go. Either, like, one time we made it to the airport, we made it on the plane, and then the plane just, like, was broke after 3 hours of sitting on this empty plane, and so we had to get off and we weren't able to go. Another time, the flight just in general got canceled, and there was no other flights that were available for us. Um, Gosh, COVID hit, and then that canceled one of our trips. Like we kept trying, and it kept not happening, and so just the desire to go got stronger and stronger. And why I wanted to go is because Costa Rica, one, has all different types of environments to explore. Like, I mean, there's literally a jungle, there's mountains, there's the ocean, and there's just a whole lifestyle to explore over there. And one of the things that I really have enjoyed doing is reading about whales and their migration. And I was particularly drawn to the humpback whale migration. And there's a little town called Uvita that a lot of people haven't really heard of in Costa Rica. It's not really traveled that much. And it's got this beach that's called the Whale's Tail. And it's known for being where the humpback whales go to give birth and teach their babies to surface and breathe. And that is just something that I really, really wanted to see. So Simon and I finally make it to Costa Rica after, I mean, I literally think this is like our fifth try, and we finally make it to Costa Rica. And the first 2 days, we are just not getting along at all. Little did each of us know, we both thought that we were going home to get a divorce. Like we were both separately that done. And, this is the dream trip, and it felt miserable. So I think we were 2 days into the trip, maybe three. And it was our day to go onto the boat and go out into the ocean where a lot of tourist boats are. And they're like these big, big boats. A lot of people are on it. And I think like a storm was rolling in that day. Regardless, the water was ridiculous. I mean, you're going up, you're going down. And like when you like on these waves, these like big waves, and when you go down, I mean, it's like it's so drastic and so hard that like you're popping up out of your seat and like hard to sit still. And, it was okay. And somehow, for some reason, I can't remember if it was my fault. I don't know. But we got sat in the front of the boat too. So it's like the worst part. It's the part where you're getting hit the most. You're experiencing like the motions more extreme than in the back. So we get to out in the ocean. There's a bunch of different tourist boats that are all looking for a mom whale and baby, and there's one. So we're all surrounded basically this mom whale with its baby whale. And I just remember just this big emotional release, like just these chills came over my body. I'm looking at the mom whale, like tears start coming out of my eyes, and I just look at Simon. I go, "This was worth it. This was amazing. This is worth the wait. This is everything I wanted." And next thing I know, um, we're we're heading back to the beach. I literally don't recall from that moment back to us getting back to shore. And apparently that's when I experienced my first seizure. And that was really scary, of course, for Simon. He doesn't know what's going on. He that was a scary experience for him, and I can only imagine. I don't know how I would handle that and what I would do in that situation. So in a selfish way, I'm kind of thankful that it wasn't the other way around, because I don't know what I would do. So we get to shore. He helps me kind of recoup. I think I remember someone giving me like juice, and I remember we got like a snack, and we went back, and we over the next couple days, it kept happening. And then I would have another seizure, and then I'd be out of it for hours. I have to go sleep. I'm exhausted. And there was always a buildup. It's like like the day of the first seizure, I woke up that day and everything fell off. And when I say everything fell off, I mean like my surroundings felt like they were moving kind of like a wave and kind of slower than what they're actually moving. That sounds completely weird, but I guess if you know, you know. So I woke up, my surroundings are just everything's moving in a different wavelength, and I knew I didn't feel right, and I knew that I was moving slower than usual. and then the episode happens. So as they keep happening each day that we're on the trip, thankfully we're still able to enjoy a lot of the things that we wanted to experience. But it was challenging because I would have an episode and then I'd have to sleep for a little bit. And it would just take me a while to get back into a normal groove and just be present again. I typically would feel the same things. I would feel this like tingling in my body, the nauseousness in the stomach, and it starts to rise to where I'm wondering if I really am going to get sick. Um, the environment starts moving. I realize I can't hear what's exactly going on around me. Everything just kind of turns into noise. And I'm not hearing and seeing things like as they're happening. It's like it's very delayed. What else happens? I remember the final thing is I remember feeling like, oh, fight this, you got this, you got this. But it would feel like my head would just get heavy. And once I would feel that my head gets heavy, we learned that that's like game over. Once the head gets heavy and I feel like I can't hold it up, there's going to be a seizure and I'm going to be out for a little bit. And Simon was so caring. Like he took such good care of me, even though we each thought like, oh, we're going to go home and get divorced. Like he really cared and he really took care of me and helped keep me calm. And I remember we were sitting at dinner one of the last nights that we were there, and he just looks at me and he starts crying and he was like, this has been the most scariest thing I've ever experienced, and I just love you so much, and I can't imagine anything happening to you, so we need to figure out what's wrong. And I remember just being like, wow, I needed to hear that. Like I really needed to hear those words. I really thought that we were just on total different planes, and I didn't see another option. I wasn't feeling the love that I needed and the attention that I needed. And here I am experiencing like one of the like scariest points in my life, and we're feeling love for each other and being able to express it. And it was definitely a big turning point for us. So we got back into the United States, and Simon was like, hey, if you have another one when we get into the States, like we need to go to the hospital. We didn't go to the hospital while we were in Costa Rica. One, because we weren't exactly sure what was going on. Um, I mean, yeah, we weren't sure what was going on. I mean, you're in another country, and I don't know what you guys have experienced, but when you go to another country like Costa Rica, Jamaica, things like that, the food tastes different. It's made different. It doesn't have all the shit that is in our food. So the tastes are all different. I swear, I don't, my kids don't believe me, but I swear, like the bananas in Costa Rica are so good and they taste so different than the bananas that we have at home. And it's really like the food is just more natural. They don't have crap in them. And so we really were thinking that I was having just some sort of like sugar crash, having less sugar in my food and less crap in it than what we're used to. And so we were like, well, let's just get back into the States and surely it won't happen anymore once we get back to a normal diet. So we thought, no big deal. Like, let's just get the trip over with. We get home, and it was that next morning that we were home is when all the feelings started coming again. And I had a seizure. And when I have one of these seizures, again, I don't obviously really know what's going on and what's really visually happening. But as it's described to me, like my body gets like really tight and like close together. And my eyes are fluttering and my body starts jerking in like tight motions, like into my body. And oftentimes when I wake up, my tongue would be swollen, and so obviously I bit my tongue, and my mouth would be like really really dry. So I'd need water, but I also will have a hard time staying awake. So like I'm constantly needing like falling asleep to take like a little nap or something, and then waking up, chugging water, and then I get really 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 cold. So then I have to I mean, when this it was summer when these started, like hot summer, and like uncontrollably cold to where like even though the environment is hot, like I'm bundled in blankets and hoodies, like trying to keep myself warm because my body just for some reason can't feel warmth. So, of course, all of these symptoms really do lead to a seizure. They're classic classic signs of a seizure, down to biting your tongue and your tongue being swollen. So when it happens when we get back that first morning, back at home, back in the US, it happens again. And I think my mom had the kids the whole time we were gone. So we felt bad. And Simon called his mom to come get Nora. I think the big kids were still with their dad or something. And obviously a lot of this is still a blur. But we'll get to the point, I promise. So I remember we get to the hospital, and because we had been out of the country, we got quarantined, which actually was kind of one of the funny, coolest things. It's just like Grey's Anatomy when you watch someone get quarantined and you're in this like big glass room with like sliding doors, and all the nurses and doctors that would come in were in hazmat suits because we were out of the country. It was wild, but I will say I've never had faster care in a hospital than I did coming back from Costa Rica. I mean, we were immediately in a room, immediately being treated. It was great. It was, if you're gonna go to the hospital, maybe just say you've been out of the country. Don't do that. I'm just kidding, but yeah, don't do that. So they're running all these blood tests, and I remember I'm really hard to get a catheter in, like for blood. And I remember that was one of the first things that they did is they wanted to make sure that they had a catheter access in case I started having a seizure again. And I remember while they were getting the catheter in, all the feelings started coming, and I started warning them like, hey, like I'm starting to feel all the things. And then once my head started getting heavy, Simon, told them, hey, like you got seconds, like she's about to have one. And so I remember they like finished the catheter really fast. They injected this medication that I guess like stops seizures. And I remember this wave, like this just like warm wave, just filling my whole body. Like my chest felt hot and heavy, and just this hot and heavy is running down my whole body. And at this point, they're getting ready to transfer us into a room because they've decided, I'm probably not going to kill people from being in Costa Rica. So they're wheeling us to another room, and I really think I'm having a heart attack and I'm dying. Like I feel like I can't breathe, and everyone's like, "No, your heart rate's normal, your oxygen's normal, like you're fine." And I'm just wide-eyed thinking, "This is it. I'm about to die. I don't know why everyone's so calm. Like I'm dying. This is it." And sure enough, I was not dying. They gave me like a emergency like anti-anxiety injection or something, and the feeling went away. So I wasn't dying. I guess I guess that's like an intense panic attack. So that's good. I get scheduled an EEG. So an EEG is when they attach all those little wires to your head, and they can pick up on the brain wavelengths. Like you can see if you move a finger, like you see like wave changes on this machine. And a lot of times when they hook them up, you can see if someone has had a seizure because there'll be like some abnormalities in the line. But sometimes not. Sometimes it doesn't show up. So when I had mine, I had two. The first one was inconclusive. I have a lot of hair, and so apparently it didn't connect right. And so they came back the next day and they did another one. That one came up with no abnormalities, so no answers onto what was going on. I had an MRI or a CAT scan. I can't remember which one's which, so I don't know the difference. But I remember going into this machine and having like a scan of my head, and there was nothing there like that could cause like a seizure, so that was good. But blood work was all normal. We did all sorts of tests. They even did a spinal tap, and I really did not want to do that, but they couldn't find any answers. And they were like, this really, really, really could give us the answer. Like, you really should do it. And I was so upset. I did not want to do it, but I did it. I actually passed out during the spinal tap. I don't do needles very well. And I think I just worked myself out and I passed out during it. But I remember like being able to hear and the nurse saying, "Oh, she's out," and then waking back up and I'm like laying back down flat. And I was like, "Well, I told you guys I'd probably pass out. I passed out when my blood's drawn. It's just a whole thing." So I was in the hospital for 5 days. I had like just numerous tests run. Nothing was coming up. When I left the hospital, I left on anti-seizure medications, Keppra, and on a anxiety medication that doubles as like a antihistamine, if I remember correctly. It was odd. Um, and trazodone, I believe I left the hospital with. Yes, I did because yes, I was having a hard time sleeping and I was so like overwhelmed. Um, Regardless, I leave the hospital on a handful of meds, and their recommendation is stay on this medication, this anti-seizure medication, and get in with a neurologist when you can. Uh, Being on Keppra, I know that some people have been on Keppra and like have felt okay, but there is wow. So Keppra, your brain and your body has to get used to it. So when you start taking Keppra, you are, I was high as a kite is what I guess the best way I can explain it. I like my brain just wasn't functioning. I was sleeping nonstop. I was so tired. And I was loopy. I would forget what I was doing. I would forget if I took my meds, when I took my meds. There was definitely a few days where I doubled up on my meds because I would take them and then poof. Am I holding my bottle because I just took them, or am I holding my bottle because I'm about to take them? That's how bad it was. Now I know that that is a very common side effect with Keppra. It really clouds your memory, not even just when you start taking it, but long term, it affects your memory. So I did learn that there's people that would have family members that have seizures and on Keppra, and they were like, yeah, no, that's really common. Like, we have to do this really strict medication tracking system because they will just be looking at their pills and can't remember if they just took them or were about to. I was like, great, okay, well, that's good. Good to know. Keppra is also a very big side effect of it is rage. And that is definitely something that I did not want to experience. Fortunately, I don't feel like I ever got the Keppra rage because I didn't take it for too long. It was only maybe 2 weeks before we did go to the neurologist. And I remember we felt like, okay, she's going to figure out what's going on. But what she did is she sat with us for maybe about 30 minutes and then basically just kind of shook up all my meds. She wanted to wean off of Keppra and put me on this other one. And I think it started with an L, but I can't remember what it was anymore. And she like upped my anxiety and changed my anxiety meds. And I can't even tell you anymore. Basically shook up my meds. But ultimately she ended up having me, I remember the goal was to wean me off Keppra, but she ended up having me on Keppra and this other anti-seizure. So I was on 2 anti-seizures at one point because she ended up deciding to keep me on both of them. On top of the anxiety medicine, which I think is what I still take today, anti-anxiety and depression. So we follow up after 3 months of her changing things up. And what we remember from that appointment is that in 3 months, we would check up, see what's been going on. Has there been any more seizures? And then start doing whatever we could to figure out the cause. How can we get rid of them? Because every time I'm having a seizure, I can't drive. I can't drive for 6 months. And so at that point, by the time we had seen her, I had still had a seizure since the hospital. And so my driving, that was, let's see. Well, that was what, in September or something? It was like in September, October. It was in like October, November or something. Regardless, my driving had been provoked until well into the next year. So that's also really stressful. I have kids to drive around. Being on the Keppra, it just affects your brain so much too that I couldn't function, and no one really knew what was causing the seizures and when they would happen. And so my mom was at my house every day, like basically taking care of me and Nora because I was a ticking time mom, couldn't leave the house, didn't know what was going on half the time. So we go to the doctor and she spends 5 minutes with us in the room at our follow-up appointment and says, great, stay on these meds. We'll see you. We'll see you in a while. And I think, let me correct. I don't think we saw her in a month after being on the meds. Not multiple months. We saw her about a month after the initial med change and meeting her. Saw her for the 5 minutes. And then she was like, all right, cool. We'll see you in 6 months. And Simon goes, whoa, 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 whoa. I thought, like, this isn't ideal. Like, we're loaded up on meds. We don't know what's causing them. Like, I thought the point was to figure out. And she was like, well, the meds have improved it. Maybe not perfectly, but they have improved it. So let's just stay on the meds and we'll reevaluate in 6 months. I remember just kind of being like numb and I don't think I really had an opinion. And Simon was very, very, very adamant that that's not acceptable and that's not what we're doing. We're going to know what's going on and we're going to figure out how to solve it. And so I'm really thankful that he is, just when he wants something, he's going to find a way to get it. And that's just how he is. And so he wanted to know what was wrong with me and he wanted to help me get better. So we talk to friends and we find other neurologists that we know, people that have used them. And that was probably a few months, definitely, I mean, probably within 2 months or whatever of seeing that last doctor. We see this neurologist, and he spends, an hour and a half in the room with us for our first appointment, going over each symptom, like what happened, like history, like what does it look like, what does it feel like just all these things. And I remember in that appointment just feeling like, oh my gosh, we are going to figure out what's wrong. We're going to do it. And I told him, look, I've done a lot of research. This is going to be one of two things. I'm either having frontal lobe seizures, XYZ, or I'm having what is called PNES, psychological non-epileptic seizures. And I was like, and please, like, don't make me crazy. Like, I don't want to be crazy. And he goes, regardless, you're not crazy, but I really think that you're correct. It's not going to be PNES. It's going to be frontal lobe seizures because everything is presenting in the exact what it would look like and how you feel. But as confident as he was, he did give us the option if we would like to do an at-home EEG where they hook me up for 5 days and I'm on a camera, I'm on chest monitors, brain monitors, and basically just can't leave the house. And I'm monitored on camera for 5 days, sleeping, all the things. Within those 5 days, I had multiple seizures. And so as frustrating as it was good because now it's captured. The waves are being captured. The image of what's happening to me is being captured. So this is great. I get sent off and evaluated, and maybe 7 days later, 7 days later, I get the call that, hey, I got to see the episodes. I got to see the brain length, and I have to say it's non-epileptic seizures. Non-epileptic. So what does that mean? That means that there is nothing neurologically causing the seizures and that there's likely going to be a psychological cause. And I said, okay, so you're telling me I'm crazy. And he goes, you're not crazy. I have seen it before, and I saw it. Like, you're not crazy. It's happening. And he recommended that I go see a specific type of therapist to work on some psychological healing options. So that news was devastating to me. Like, I literally cried nonstop for days because I felt like, oh my gosh, I have been affected at this point for 6 months, like not driving, not feeling like I have a life for 6 months to be told that it's basically in my head. Like it's wild. And in the time that we were waiting on a diagnosis, like I was so depressed. Also, the seizure medicines don't, really, you get really depressed. And I remember I was recommended to find some like seizure support groups, and I did that on Facebook. But every time I would see someone post, and every time I would see something, I'd get angry, like you don't know what I'm going through, even though everyone's there because they have seizures. Like you don't know what it's like you're I but that's not the case. It's there for support because everyone's experiencing the same things. And even more so after I got the diagnosis, I got even more angry with that group and was like, yeah, y'all don't know what I'm going through. And I left the group, and I just was in just this dark, dark hole. I was so depressed, like crying all the time, and just felt crazy. And it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing when people really close to me would know what I was actually diagnosed with, and what that means. So what that means is that they are psychological non-epileptic seizures, meaning and there's not a lot of knowledge on it. So other than seeing a psychologist. So I start seeing a psychologist that specializes in, she can do EMDR, which is most commonly known, and a thing called brain spotting. Brain spotting is what seemed less invasive and was highly recommended for me. And so this sounds like all wild, and we go see this therapist. I just remember being like this ball, like I'm just on her couch, profusely sweating, trembling, and really crying the whole time during this intake because I'm like, yeah, you can't help me. Like I'm just crazy and broken. Like this is stupid. I don't know why I'm here. And so it got to the point where she goes, would you be more comfortable if your husband was in here? And I was like, yes, 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 I would. And so she calls Simon in. Simon's sitting next to me, and you guys know, if you've seen us together, like he just puts his hand on my leg or something, and like I can start like calming down and breathing. And so she basically says, hey, like what I've already noticed in our intake from the forms that were pre-filled out and from our conversation this last hour and a half, there's some significant traumas going on, and that trauma gets to the point where it can just shut down the brain, which I don't know. A lot of times it's not. We all know a fight, flight, freeze, right? Well, there's also two others that I hadn't really ever heard before. It's called fawn and flop. So that's also part of a trauma response. My body definitely has gotten to the point where it flops. So my brain is just, as she described it, it's like a ball of yarn, and it's so, so tight that it can't work out any of the problems, any traumas. It's just wound tight, and it can't process anything else. So if anything else goes wrong, or if anything causes any sort of stress, the body flops, the brain turns off. And so it felt good to hear, like, okay, it sounds like she knows what she's doing. This brain spotting sounds insane, but I was so depressed. I was like, whatever, I'll do whatever. At this point, I don't care. I was off of the Keppra, off of the other seizure medicine, and now I was just on anxiety meds, which ended up getting like bumped up to like the highest level that you can get. And after about 6 months, maybe less actually. I mean, it might have been like 4 months of doing consistent brain spotting, which brain spotting is kind of where you go into this trance-like state. You activate both sides of your brain, and you allow yourself to go into this trance type state where your vision kind of like just blurs out, and your brain just starts playing things in your head. So it could be, you know, the feeling of embarrassment. Like that was really, really heavy for the first time. Well, okay, like where is the feeling of embarrassment coming from and why? So then you would do a brain spotting session where like that was the thought in your mind. You go into this trance, and like you're listening to like this music that activates both sides of your brain. And you just start seeing, at least for me, I think it's a little different for people, but for me, I start seeing images and like just kind of seeing movies like play out in my head. And the other unfortunate part is that afterwards, I I would be a zombie for the next 2 days, like because your brain after you're doing a brain spotting session is still unwinding and working out everything that it was trying to process while you were in the brain spotting session. So it was very hard. And for the first while, I just felt more and more depressed because it's so much. It's just so much. Um, so I keep up with the brain spotting because, we did notice that slowly the seizures did stop because I was still having them. And I am not so embarrassed about it anymore that I can't talk about it. In fact, what I have learned is that I've learned a lot. I was this diagnosis extremely embarrassing and extremely hard to accept and be okay working with. Yes. But what Simon and I will both tell you is that it's honestly the best thing that has ever happened in our life because I'm going through this challenging health experience. Simon had his own challenges and his on his side of the family that was really really, if you know us, you know how very drama filled and drastic and problematic that was. And we were going through this at the same time. And I was able to be there for him as he's trying to process the major changes in his life, as he's there for me going through the major changes and challenges in my life. And it just brought us so close. It brought us so much closer together. We were both able to be there for each other. So that, above all, has been what has been made this all just like really worth it, as shitty as it is. So psychological non-epileptic seizures is oftentimes caused from a compound of trauma. So the brain has so much trauma that has been unprocessed that it can't handle anymore. The box is full, lid is exploding, and you can't. My temper was really short. I think a lot of you would know that I had a short temper for a long time, and it's because due to the brain not having enough space to process anything, it would get to a point where like, oh, a cup of water spilt over. Now I'm really angry because it's just another thing to figure out and process, and it's not. That's not a normal reaction. That is the reaction of someone who cannot process anything more that is going on in their life, any more stimulant, too many sounds on at once, too much light, just all the things real quick to irritation, and everything feels like the end of the world. Brain spotting helped me overcome the challenge of these non-epileptic seizures. And actually what I've learned, which is why I thought that it was really, really important to share with you guys, is that epilepsy, like actual epilepsy, is misdiagnosed 40% of the time. 40% of the time, a person is not actually experiencing epileptic seizures. They're actually experiencing PINEs, psychological non-epileptic seizures. And so they will live on these medications and be misdiagnosed, these like literally life-changing, life-altering things where you're unable to drive for months every time you have a seizure. Your brain's being literally affected. Your personality is being literally altered with these seizure medications. So you heard me, 40% is misdiagnosed. The average of someone who is misdiagnosed stays misdiagnosed for 8.5 years, but most commonly 10 years. So 10 years, people will be on these medications that's just altering their mind and their personality and affecting how they can live their life and just controlling all these things. And it's wild. It's wild, it's upsetting, and it's because it's reversible. When you have epilepsy, you can take medication. You'll likely be on medication the rest of your life, but that's your life. Being diagnosed with the non-epileptic seizures, there's psychology and therapies to help you make space to process what's going on. And after a year of going through brain spotting and therapy, I want to say I never have any more seizures, but that's not true. But it's very very rare, less often. And I am a whole new person. If you know me, you know a lot of my basic life views have changed. A lot of my acceptance has changed. Just my personality is so much more calm, so much more present, and I just have so much room to learn who I am, which is why the podcast was created in the first place. I felt like I didn't know who I was because all of my autonomy and all of my freedom had just been taken away from me. And I already didn't know who I was. I have been a mom and working 24/7, not 24/7, but you know what I mean, working full-time jobs. I didn't know anything about myself, and it's really easy for us to lose that and not even realize that we've lost it. Like, can you right now tell me like what your favorite color is? Can you tell me what your favorite style of clothing is? Like that makes you actually feel good. These are the things that I couldn't even answer. And Melissa had made a comment that, oh, I've always wanted a podcast. And I, kind of chuckled it off. And then I go, well, I can't leave the house and talk to people any other way. You want to do a podcast with me? And she did. So Skirts Up was born. And what happened with Skirts Up being born is the other best thing that ever happened to me. We started talking and meeting with so many different people, and we used it as a space where we could just record ourselves learning about random shit. Like, oh, let's talk about tarot and look up what tarot is. There's this odd spiritual type of belief where, there's spirit guides and stuff. Let's learn about that. And that just led into finding other people who do really believe other things than what I had ever heard of or known to be true. It led to gaining more perspective and knowledge. Again, these are perspectives that I've never been exposed to before and never would have known existed. And so it fed my natural thirst for knowledge. And so just getting to meet more and more people, I actually found more and more of myself. I actually have found a lifestyle that I love, I'm really comfortable with. My marriage has become so much stronger because of my mind just being more open and receptive to change and things that are different. And really, one of my biggest frustrations and why I felt like it wasn't worth being knowledgeable in a particular view or belief is because my brain it has a really hard time if something isn't exact. So, you could say, do you believe in all the rules and policies of, the Mormon church? Or do you believe that, you have a higher self and there's spirit guides helping you along the way? Like my brain would go, okay, I hear all the facts about living in as a Mormon. I understand how that can be comfortable for people and how that happens, and also why people can, leave the church and why they would. Then I can also hear and feel validation from everything that someone says about spirit guides and, what that means. And so then my brain would just get overloaded and be like, well, shit, I don't know what I believe in. And this is overwhelming because how can I believe in two things at once? And one of the most mind-changing, life-changing phrases that was said to me by someone on the podcast, Kelly Palmatier, was that it's okay to believe in everything and nothing at all. And that's kind of been like my philosophy for many things. When I go, oh man, is reincarnation real? Like I really think it is, but what if it's not real? So what? So what? And it's okay to believe in all things and nothing at all. I mean, it's there's just so much to explore, and I don't know. I don't really know what to tell you other than I have really enjoyed getting to know the person that I am today, and it's been a journey, and this podcast just keeps giving me purpose and giving me actual life goals, and there's just an even higher and better me that I know that I can get to, and life has just been great. So, I still have work to do. I'm still in therapy. I still have some random seizure episodes. And there's a reason. Usually something that my brain just, again, has a hard time processing, because there's still some things that are yet to be processed. And my brain flops. We just know that's how I operate. So like with Ada dying, I experienced a lot of flops. It was really hard having that extreme change in my life. So we've been getting over that, and with that has opened some more aspects of my life that have yet to have been worked out and actually processed. So now my brain has space to process that, and so now it's just another wave of ups and downs and experiencing really, really tough stuff inside of my head and having to talk about it and having to relive things. And that really sucks. But I know that after a while, I'm going to be an even better person. I'm going to be an even happier person. I'm going to be an even more accepting person. I'm going to be an even more lovable person. I know I'm lovable right now, so don't come at me. But I can love myself more the more that I continue to grow. And so, of course, that means that I'm able to accept myself or accept love from others a whole lot better and a whole lot more. And I have a lot more love to accept and give. And I look forward to, even though it's down right now, getting even better and seeing where I am in another year. So I encourage you guys to really read up on trauma. Actually, you know what? We'll get a therapist on to talk about trauma and how it leads to non-epileptic seizures. It'd actually be really interesting to hear the professional perspective and not just my half memory of what I experienced and lived through. But also just really let the numbers sink in, because it's mind-blowing. 40% of people who actually have non-epileptic psychological seizures are misdiagnosed and live on these medications that make you a zombie and just limit your life and alter your brain for 8.5 to 10 years. It's wow. If you are having seizures that have been unexplained and they can't find a cause and nothing's showing up on the scans, please, 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 please demand an at-home EEG, demand to figure out what is actually happening. Because if you can get on the scan having a seizure, like in the moment, like that's your answer. Like your brain you can't make up your brain waves to show something on the EEG that's not really there. So if you're having an episode and nothing shows up, that's your answer. You do not have epilepsy. You have trauma and you need help, and that's okay. And just know that once you do get help, your life becomes freer and you just start to love life a whole lot more. So yeah, happy Mental Health Awareness Month. Take care of yourself. Did you like the episode that you heard today? Great. Share it with a friend and don't forget to rate and review.